Okay.
Here he is.
God, that was harder than any of the questions you're going to ask me.
It normally is. The tech side normally catches us out, but you're pretty good at it. You're pretty good at it.
Oh, I was pretty good at it. The last minute and a half were a bit dicey.
Under pressure.
Yeah, under pressure.
All right, Jeff, I just need to do a little intro quickly and then we'll get started. Okay, so my name's Andrew McKenna. I'm the founder of the African Turf Academy, an academy that started to find the next generation of golf course managers. During the lockdown, I started a series just for a bit of fun. The traction of it has been great, and just to showcase the different opportunities in the golf industry that are vast. Jeff is... I'm very privileged to have him on today, and thank you for your time. Jeff is seen as a mentor figure, a ambassador for golf in South Africa, seen as many as their mentors, and runs an amazing operation at St. Francis Links that, the feedback you get from customers coming back from there is always wonderful. So we're going to try and tap into that today and see if he can give us some of his secrets. We won't divulge into too much IP, but let's see what he can give us. Okay, but before we start, I just want to give you a couple of random questions. Wine or whiskey?
Whiskey.
Okay. Augusta or St. Andrews?
St. Andrews.
Very good. And just for now, Jack or Tiger?
Jack.
Okay.
Easy.
Easy. All right, let's get started. What I want to know is just for the young guys in our academy who are watching, and for those out there, how did your golfing journey start?
Well, believe it or not, this is going to be year number 60. 4 years old, trees from the front yard to the neighbor's yard to their picture window, 7 irons, cut down clubs. My parents were both golfers socially, and my brother and sister were old enough to babysit. So when the parents were running away to play golf, I was saying, where did they go? And so I was bitten quite early. I think I peaked at about 15, but it was a great journey for many, many, many years.
Okay, and then what dragged you to South Africa?
Well, that's a pretty good question. I ran a top development in my first head professional position, was a Nicholas Signature outside of Austin, Texas, a great music city on Lake Travis. And the guy who ran the tennis operation, which was a world-class tennis operation funded by the Hunt family, who tried to corner the silver market a few decades ago, was that guy named Billy Freer, South African.
Okay.
Billy left that institution to come to work with Andre Peterson at Fancourt in 1989. And he contacted me in 1990 and said, come, I haven't found what I'm looking for. And I think what he was looking for was somebody who was involved with resort golf, but also with member golf. And that can be a delicate balance, And even if you look at Fancourt today, it's still a delicate balance between running a resort and looking after the many members that they have.
Okay, and you're in the same situation now at St. Francis?
Yeah, but yeah, I think if you treat your members like royalty and your guests as members for the stay, we can get it done.
Okay. All right. So many of your guys, I know Tina's is watching, Maya's also watching. Many of your guys that I speak to see you as a real mentor figure. What do you think you do that leaves them with that, with you as that player in their lives?
Aside from Mayor, who required quite a bit of education, all of them, I think it'd start with hire the talent and teach the skills. The game that we're involved with is not rocket science. It's hospitality. And the things that are important is that we're consistent, that we try to think ahead. We try to anticipate people's needs and wants. We try to think outside the box. But I think if there was one thing that I said to anybody in this industry is golf is a choice for people. Sometimes it's business that takes place on the golf course. Sometimes it's just pleasure. Sometimes it's family. But we're there to make sure that their time is quality. The less pressure, the better. And the pressure is there in the game itself. So the very least we can do is make it an enjoyable experience.
Not always easy though. Eh?
Well,
I mean,
we didn't invent wind here. We just patented it. That makes it a little tricky.
Okay. All right. So I've been asked to ask you a couple of your trade secrets. Inspect what you expect. What does that mean?
Inspect what you expect. That could be anything from lifting the seat on a golf cart and checking the battery water, to driving the course and looking at the pin placements, to walking through the restaurant and greeting your staff and make sure they're tuned into what's going on that day. I think it's inspect what you expect means if it's important to you, then you've got to make sure the people that are working with you on your team understand the importance. And if you don't inspect it, why should they pay any attention to it?
Very good. Very good. Again, just the second one for now is pesos. Am I saying it right? Am I saying it right?
Well, if you're in Mexico, it'd be pesos.
Pesos.
That's the currency. I see you've talked to a couple of my boys.
I tried to. I'm learning to do my research in these things.
Well, you realize that when we were kids, it all started with do this, clean your room, or do that, or rake the yard, or whatever it may be. And as a kid, you used to say, "Why, Dad? Why, Mom?" And in this particular case, we still operate that way. Go do that. Go out to the fourth and do that, or go to check the box, check the phone at 9 and make sure. Why? Well, everything we do, the P is plan, the E is explain, the S is show, the O is observe, and the final S is supervise. And so many times we skip those steps. If it's important enough to make it a task, then the person you're assigning that task to or delegating that task to must understand first why they're doing it, and then understand how to do it and what they're doing. And so many times, how many times have you been spanked or scolded or lectured about doing it wrong, when in simple terms, you really weren't shown how to do it right?
And that's so that's the way to say it, right? Pesos. And pesos. That's the same with parenting, right? I've got young kids, and I think I must implement that straight away.
Well, they're going to ask you why. They're going to ask you why anyway, Dad. And you just can't come back with "'cause I told you so."
Well, during these interviews, I give the guys who are watching the chance to ask questions as well. And one of your stuff, by the way, Jeff and I, we've known each other, maybe not great over the years, but we've known each other because he keeps stealing my staff. He kept stealing my staff over the years, and now he's stealing our students as well, which is great. So his second in command, I'm not sure how you see Tinas. It used to be working with me at Silver Lakes, and Christu also. Is Christu still with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now you've also got one of our students, Walt Ustazen. And how's Walty doing?
Well, now, this is my question to you, Andrew. At what point in their
I'm doing the interview, right?
At what point in their education process did you teach them rock fishing?
Yeah, he loves that.
Do me a favor.
You start to realize people's ambitions when they aim to be fishing by 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, I pay people from 8 to 5, and I promote people from 5 to 8. But in Walt's case, he gets enough done from 6:30 to 2:30 to go find a rock to fish from.
Yeah, I see a lot of it.
And you know what else he did? The first time he played with our members, he drove the friggin' 18th green. He drove it in the front bunker.
Yeah, no, he's got some power. He was a hammer thrower at school. So
I can see that.
Good.
He's also the definition of Murin Suk.
He's a proper Afrikaans boy. Okay, so just one of your staff, just while I was jumping onto that, Charles asked about the acre of diamonds.
Oh shoot, that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that when I started my career, it was almost by accident. I was called by a former mentor, along with two of my friends, to help start up the Des Moines Golf and Country Club, a real active 36-hole golf course. Robert Trent Jones, by the way, designed, brilliant, where they've hosted senior tour events. Acres of Diamonds really refers to an old management model or a management class that I took years ago, also headed by one of my mentors and one of my bosses, Clayton Cole. In this particular case, it was called Modelnetics. And one of the models, it was always visual. And that's kind of where Inspect What You Expect came from, and others. Acres of Diamonds means that most people spend their life looking for the diamond mine. They're always looking across the fence. They're always, it's that greener on the other side kind of concept. But people are always seeking something different, and even more today than with my parents. I mean, my parents were married forever. My dad was in the same job forever. Now people feel if they can't make a difference in 6 months, they're in the wrong place and in the wrong job. And quite frankly, if you'd stop looking around and look down, you'd find that the diamond mine's right under your feet.
Okay, yeah, I say the diamonds are under your pillows. Same concept. Because we always look further afield and it's right in front of you half the time. It's like exactly finding that tomato sauce in your fridge. It's there. You just got to see it. Okay, so you've become a mentor. Have you had a mentor in your life, or several, and then a real question for me is, how do you identify a mentor from someone who possibly is leading you down the wrong path?
That's your last point might be your most important point. Listen, we're going to walk down some wrong paths. We're going to make some mistakes along the way, I guess. And that's what makes golf so tough, because we keep making the same mistakes. But in life, I guess everybody knows how much I talk about Charlie. Charlie was my last head professional that I worked under. And he was at a real staunch old legacy club called Houston Country Club, in which really the only new member was the son or the daughter of an old member. I'll never forget, a guy wanted to become a member at Houston Country Club. He wanted to move up from the club a few blocks down the road. He even offered to put an addition on to the clubhouse because he was a builder. Well, he didn't last a day on the big board because it wasn't about that. And yet, Charlie, the point of my story is, Charlie thought outside the box more than anybody you'll ever meet in your life. He was such a visionary. He took this old school, same tee time. For Judge O'Connor was 10:34 every Saturday morning, and it was Steve Lee 10:34. And he always wanted to play earlier, but he played slow. So Judge O'Connor always got 10:34. But Charlie, at the same time, brought golf schools to Houston Country Club. He brought Jim Flick and John Elliott and Davis Love, Jack Lumpkin, the great Paul Runyon, when he was nearly 80 years old, came. Dave Pells, along with Charlie's friend Dick Harmon, of the great Harmon family, they basically brought him out. And we had the first the perfect putter in our golf shop. At one point, we sold Cole Haan shoes and Stanley Blacker suits in the golf shop because he wanted his member to just be able to come and do everything from one place. Shop, play, go home. And he made it happen. And from that, I got a great education. I learned to think about doing things differently. But there was also, here's another point I should make. We kind of think when we came to South Africa, one of the things that I saw was young apprentices tend to work for the same guy for the whole tenure. And maybe that was a relationship that was based on paying his fees or something down those lines. But I was very fortunate to work for different professionals. I said I started with J.D. Turner in Des Moines. It was an active club. I was a cart jockey. We had 140 carts, half with roofs, half without. We pulled those carts out. We shined them, washed the clubs, did winter servicing on clubs. Then when I moved to Texas, my first pro was a guy named Bob Putt. How's that for golf? And our superintendent's name was Bob Green. But Bob Putt was National Merchandiser of the Year. And he taught me to just not let a sale be a sale. He was the original add-on. You're just not good enough to sell a shirt. And I never forget, I sold a set. Emilio Lanzagoria was a very wealthy oilman from Mexico who had a place in Horseshoe Bay. And he came one night late. I was closing. I was there by myself. And he wanted a set of clubs. Well, I not only sold him a set of clubs, I sold him two. And I sold him 2 Hills of Lakeway golf bags. And I sold him 2 pairs of shoes. And I was really proud of myself. I mean, at this point in time in 1980, this was pretty major league stuff. But he had the cash and he had the ambition. I said, well, you got to have the same stuff here and there. And so he bought into the whole thing. And when I got done, I called Bob. I said, Bob, you're not going to believe what just happened. I mean, my voice was cracking. I said, this is what I just sold. It's $2,300. He said, did you sign him up for the range club? I thought I was going to die. The next one was Jerry Smith. He was the pros pro. He was the president of Southern Texas PGA, and he was at Lakeside Country Club. And when I moved from him to Charlie to Houston Country Club, it was actually like going from 3 to 1. And I think for a little while he took it personally, but I learned so much. I learned to teach from Jerry. And then when I got to Charlie, Charlie said, well, you're qualified. You do it. You're not going to ask me anymore. So I kind of went from Mother May I to spread your wings. And that was great.
I think it's such an important point though, that when you're doing an apprenticeship to have different locations, mentors, experiences, skills, you know, every guy's got his weakness, his strength. If you're stuck with one guy, all you're seeing is that from one guy. So the PGA system is set up like that, but it isn't used like that enough. So yeah, it's a great bit of advice for anyone starting greenkeeping, PGA professional or club management is to follow that process, because I would love to have spent a year with you, Jeff, but I was following a playing career, which is very one-dimensional in itself. So you got to, once you finish that, you're starting from the bottom.
Well, I think
okay.
I was just going to add on to the point that so many guys do have a single focus, and all I'm saying is that while you have the opportunity, while you're maybe growing your game and wanting to play as a professional, you still have the opportunity to maybe work in an environment where you can build your confidence, interact with people. I mean, no machine's going to replace hospitality. So if you can find yourself in the environment we're in, I think you can grow, even if you want to be a player. And if you want to be a player, by all means, go do it. I'm just saying that when you're in the side of the game that we're in, and I wanted to finish the mentoring thing by just saying one more thing, and that is I've been so blessed to have been in golf clubs and golf environments or even business environments through the years where I've learned from my members, I've learned from my visitors. I've had some guy take his arm around me and sit me down and say, you know, maybe you should think about it this way. And while we're here to serve, we're also here to learn. And I'm a better person for the people that I've worked with and worked for.
Absolutely great, but that's a great attitude. Liesl, your wife, is asking for you to talk about Arnie and Charlie Epps and plum bobbing.
Oh shit! Sorry. Oh, Liesl, I'm so glad you're on the air, girl. Okay, well, the audience has just grown to 16 plus. Charlie was also a great golfer, and he played every day that ended in Y. He usually rolled in about 8:30. He got his work done 8 hours and 4. He was usually on the tee at 12:30. With that, he was a good enough golfer to play with our members at Augusta, something I didn't get to do. We had 2 members at Augusta.
But you've been to the Masters, right?
Yeah. He also played in 4 PGAs or 5 PGAs in the years that I worked with Charlie, for Charlie. And the game at Shoal Creek in particular must have been about 1984, I think. He found a note on his locker, and it says, 10 a.m. tomorrow, Jack. Well, there's only one signature that is Jack. And when he called me and he said, geez, I'm going to play with Jack tomorrow. And they were friends. Even though Charlie hadn't played the tour, he was very well known. And so he gets the opportunity to go play with Jack Nicklaus. He gets to the first tee. The flipping fairway is lined with people. And the third person in their group is none other than the #1 golfer in the world at the time, Greg Norman. Wow. Charlie, Jack, and Greg. So Charlie, as good as he was, I made it very clear to me that it was quite a humbling experience. But the story he shared with me was kind of put golf into perspective. And I've remembered it ever since. It goes like this. They get to the first green, and Jack calls, I think Norman calls Jack over to help him read a putt. And they kind of plumb bob, and they stand behind him. He's kind of holding the putter up and looking down the shaft. And then on the next hole, Jack calls Greg over. Charlie's just standing out of the way. You know, they don't know what they're doing. Doesn't even know why they're doing it. The practice round. Finally, about the fifth hole, the both of them say, Charlie, come help us with this putt. And he says, hold the putter about here and look up just under the grip. You see the girl with the big boobs and the red top?
Brilliant.
So what that proved to me was that even the greatest and the strongest and the most thanks, Liesl. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad your wife asked you to say that one.
Turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah, we'll move on. We'll move on. Okay, so you've obviously had massive experience in the US and now massive experience in South Africa. How do you see the industry, the difference in the industry between South Africa and the US?
Well, I guess the first word you have to use here is elitist. I never grew up with that word. My first golf coach was the grocery store owner by name of Al Hoy, who was just a chipping, flipping, pitching master as an amateur golfer on our little greens about the size of your dining room table. He was the butcher and the grocery man. The farmers played on Wednesday afternoons. On Saturday mornings, it was everybody. And obviously, the cost of golf was certainly not prohibitive. In my little state of Iowa, I probably had, within an hour's drive on a weekend, 10 different tournaments I could have played in the summertime, little amateur tournaments. And so there was never anything elitist about it whatsoever. And I think that's probably why you see America opening up, because it's not considered to be something that's, you know, demeaning to the rest of the population if we played golf again. Whereas in South Africa, it has an entirely different light. You know, so when we shut down here, and we locked down, I'm out of the state. Nobody would know if my members were walking their dogs or pitching to the green at sunset. But we said, hey, can't do it. Can't do it because nobody else can do it. So let's not be any different than anybody else. So I think the primary difference between golf in America and golf in South Africa is probably who plays it and how affordable it is. And golf right now, I believe, is its worst enemy. You know, they're making golf so financially prohibitive. And for us, unfortunately, in South Africa, we're going to face some serious issues with everything from the purchase of a golf cart to a fairway unit to a greens mower. I mean, now my mechanic, Johan, is more important than he ever was because he's got to keep it running. And we're going to buy batteries instead of golf carts, and that's going to affect people. So, and golf equipment, I think the point I said, the golf hurts itself. I mean, there was a great teacher.
But do you not think that's to do with the exchange rate as much as anything? The
well,
pricing?
It was before the exchange rate. It was elitist when I came here 30 years ago, in the sense that George Golf Club was probably the only golf club. It was just the little town courses that you could play if you weren't a member. And there was, you know, we looked at virtual golfers as animals in our market. You know, who are these people that don't want to be a member of a club? Geez, man, all we want to do is get people playing. And it's up to us. It's up to us as professionals to get them into our clubs, or get them handicapped with us. At the same time, America was the private club was over there, but there was hundreds and thousands of opportunities to go to a driving range, or go to a short course, or go to a par 3, or go to a 9-hole course. I mean, my course was 9 holes. Didn't even have 2 sets of tees, and it didn't cost to play. The last time I paid a green fee was actually in my hometown. I went into the clubhouse after walking 9 holes with 3 clubs and a putter, swatting a few mosquitoes, and I ran into the guy who was the manager, the superintendent, the barman. I think he was everything. And I said, I just want to tell you, I played. I said, what I owe you? And I said, I'm a PGA member of America. And he says, that'll be $19. And I went, okay. It's just different.
And is there a solution in your mind?
You know, my solutions are kind of odd. As I started to mention Robert O. Smith, he said the game should be played with 10 clubs, and we should consider more 9-hole matches. We should play more 12-hole games. We're all talking about speed of play. I mean, when I grew up playing golf, it was an event. It was an outing. Nobody gave a hoot about how long it took you to play. But the professionals on tour have slowed it down. The green speeds have actually slowed the game down. They sped up
the size of the golf courses as well. But if you go back to the UK, where I'm from, the golf courses are so small. The tees are right next to the green, so that your wastage of time. It's a different experience.
Absolutely.
So okay, so let's talk about St. Francis Links, where you're based now. What do you think that people find so special about it? I mean, I rate it. I've only played it a couple of times, but I rate it right up there with the best in the country. I prefer it to the links at Fancourt because it's slightly more playable. But what do you think makes it so special? Apart from you.
Yeah. In a nutshell, it goes well beyond conditioning, which it's always in great nick. I think it's the variety of shots. I think it's the fact that my members, who are my primary concern, can play a different golf course every day without even changing the pins. We've spent 14 years making it more playable, widening fairways, improving the landing areas, but it still requires shot making. And I try to tell people, everybody's all about score, and yet they never play metal golf. It's really kind of strange. I had 79 today with 4 blackouts. What? So when they come here, I'm saying, look, cherish the drive, cherish the great putt that you made, cherish the great bunker shot that you hit, and forget about your score. Just go enjoy yourself. Play match play, and just enjoy the game of golf. Because it is a challenging course, but it's a golf course that you can play over and over and over again and enjoy it.
Okay, great. All right, so you've obviously, over the years, you've been to many tournaments as well. And I think you went to the President's Cup this year, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, and you've been to the Masters?
Yeah.
And you've been to the Open at St. Andrews?
Yeah.
Which is your favorite? But I can't imagine. Have you been to a Ryder Cup?
Been to 2 Ryder Cups, Glen Eagles and Perrin.
Okay, well, I can't think of any better tournaments than those. I mean, you go to US Open, but I don't put that in the same, in my opinion. But what's your favorite tournament that you've ever been to?
Well, you just prompted me on something. Tony Jacklin won the United States Open in 1970 when I was 14 years old. I watched Sam Snead hit it on the head during that tournament. I watched Tony play in black the whole week like Mr. Player. And then I reunited with Tony Jacklin at the President's Cup. And I took a picture with him, and he and I played together at Fancourt a number of years ago. But there's no doubt that sitting in the stands at 17 at St. Andrews, as Jack Nicklaus walked onto the Swilken Bridge with a tear in his eye, and it's certainly a tear in mine, as he waved to the crowd, nothing will ever top that moment in my life.
Is it still bringing a tear to your eye?
No, I just had a tickle.
Okay, I see another one of your understudies or someone who sees you in high regard has just joined us, Craig Haldane, who's a top golf course superintendent around the world now, very well respected. So welcome, Craig. Okay, now let's go back to some of your IP. Okay, the importance of, or explain shootout.
Oh, shoot. Okay, that's a good one. I've always thought that we should do more for the golfer than maybe what the course provides. And the first shootout we did was at Fancourt on what was then the 6th hole. It's now the 15th of Otaniqua. Nice little par 3 down the hill, very visual. It's right in front of your eyes. And we took his group called Contact Golf. I think there was about 70 golfers. We gave them all a shot at the green, and whoever hit the green carried on. Whoever missed the green was out. And we got down to where it was 2 people. I've modified that event here, in which almost any group that comes here, if they want it or have the time for it, we go to the 17th hole. Can you imagine any hole better than to go play the 17th with all of the action that it provides and have a shootout?
That's the one with the green that
it's
in, right?
It's called a redan in simple terms. It tilts from the front right to the back left, and you could probably rename it from St. Francis Bay to Hosepipe, because it just looks like it's rolling it looks like it's just rolling toward the hole from anywhere. And it has produced more hole-in-ones than any of our other 4 opportunities combined. And I say 4 because the third green or fourth green has a lower and an upper target. So
Okay.
at any rate, the shootout now has progressed to where I think we've had 7 hole-in-ones in the shootout. We had 2 in one day in one shootout with professionals when I had my road trip. We had a gal come from California and hold it with a driver because we were playing it into the wind, and we managed to get the flag and embroider and give it back to her. It's just part of the entertainment. I think it's just part of thinking outside the box a bit. And the last time we were at Elements with a group, we did it from their ninth, the back of the ninth over the water. And I think Ian Leach is still doing it today. I think they've made it a fixture there. So I recommend it. It's great fun. We also have a 19th hole right here above our putting green at the clubhouse. So if it's a time factor, we can do a shootout from there, or we can just break the tie in a match.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And the final one for you on your IP is I've been asked to ask you about the importance of adding value.
Well, there's 2 things that I've never agreed with in South Africa. One, I've never been a big fan of affiliated and unaffiliated rates, even though it's probably be more pronounced now than ever. And 2, I'm not a big fan of discounting. So, I think that the bottom line is that we have to exceed the highest expectations. If we're consistent in what we do and we work every day to give somebody a great experience, the added value can be anything from popping a bottle of champagne for a couple out there because it's their anniversary and they didn't expect it, to maybe it's just a picture here or there. Maybe it's group shots. Maybe it's meeting them in the bar before or afterwards. Maybe it's meeting the group before they play and sharing stories about the golf course. Maybe it's putting them on golf carts and driving them the back 9 the day before they play, just to get a feel for what they're up to. Added value to me is it costs you nothing other than time, and time is nothing. Let's just do it. If it takes us a little longer to print locker names or to put the club logos on there or the name of their group and do it on the carts, well, that's fine. It's not a big deal, and they certainly appreciate it. So I'd rather not reduce the price. I'd rather give them more than they expect.
Yeah, such a good approach. Such a good approach. Okay, right. I'm gonna jump over to some funky questions just for quickly. Cricket or rugby?
Cricket.
Okay. Baseball or American football?
College football.
College football. And 2 more. South Africa or USA?
I'm American by birth, and I'm South African by choice.
Okay, I've heard that answer before. And the sea or the bushveld? Pretty obvious for you, I think.
No. Bushveld whenever we can get there. How's that? I live on the sea.
Yeah,
man.
You live on the sea. Bushveld whenever you can get there. Yeah, most guys up here say the opposite. They love the bushveld, but when we can get to the sea, we'll go. Why choose? Why not just do both?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last couple of questions I've got for you is what advice would you give? We've touched on it a little bit. What advice would you give to young guys entering the industry?
I've just had the opportunity to do it with a couple of them recently. One was a father whose son has got an opportunity to go to college on scholarship in America. The other is a guy who's tested the waters with his skills in professional golf and wants to know the best avenue into our business now, our industry. And in that particular case, he was really tuned into club making and club fitment. And I really encouraged him at that point in time because he had a relationship with a business near him. Sorry, green grass friends, don't take this bad. But he had a good relationship with a pro shop near where he lived. And I said, one of the things is fitment. It's like my friend Peter Berman, what he's developed in Neisner with his structures, what Nesty's done in Port Elizabeth. We're not club fitters here. So we either bring the fitment guys to us or we send our members to them. And so my advice is don't walk away from school. I think Mr. Rupert is doing his very best in Grant with Golf RSA to keep amateurs as long as they can. I'm not disappointed to see our young guys who have turned pro now, but I can also name a few that turned pro and then didn't get anywhere. And they didn't have anything to fall back. and they didn't have anything to fall back on. So if you take Craig Haldane, for example, when he came to Fancourt, I looked at him and I said, I think you've got to cover more bases than just ours. He was not intending to play golf, but he was intending to be in the golf business. And I said, before you come to work for me in the golf shop, I said, I really think you should maybe work in food and beverage, work in the club. I think you should work on the course. Now, Craig was an entertainer. I mean, he could sit down and play the piano and sing anything to anybody. He had no lack of skills when it came to people. And yet he fell in love with grass. And he went on to not only be the top in the game, or one of the top people in the game, because I know he travels the world now talking about it, but I don't think he's ever stopped learning. So my real point to youngsters is learn. And with the internet today, even the people who work for me, I'm saying, get on YouTube, study the history of the game, study agronomy, study, make a difference in the sense that if you want to grow your future, growing your future.
Yeah, good, nice. That's all.
Then you got to grow yourself. You got to grow yourself. So if you want to enter our industry, some have done it through a group like Swing Fit, or some of the academies like Michael Balderstone, or some of the schools that offer academies, and they're getting well-rounded because they're getting a PGA degree, and they're getting teaching, and they're getting club fitment. So my feeling going in is you're not going to treat this as a clock in, clock out job. If you want to get good at it, you need to think outside the box. You've got to study outside the hours.
Absolutely. That's kind of my motivation for these chats. Is just to show the guys the diversity of the golf industry. I mean, tomorrow we've got Steve Isaac, who's the director for sustainability for the RNA, coming on. He's working in the administration and the oversight of golf. You're working in the service of golf. We've got Craig is doing the growing the grass, and Liesel's saying here on I don't know if you can see these scrolls coming up, but Charles Blau, who's a well-respected greenkeeper, a very well-respected greenkeeper in South Africa, also works in your food and beverage. Is that right?
Well, if it's curry night, then Charles going to carry the trays. They don't let me carry the trays. I'll drop them. I clean the tables. But in our operation, everybody overlaps. We learned that in 2009. And when Charles came on board a few years later, he fit right into that. It's not uncommon, especially as we go out of this period. There's going to be so much overlapping. There's going to be people performing jobs they haven't done before. We're going to be thinking outside the box. We're going to be coming up with ideas that we can get people back without breaking any rules. And I think we've got a great opportunity. Quite frankly, I think we've even got an opportunity within our own South Africa. As long as air travel is what it is, and we can't, people are going to discover our own country again. Many of our more affluent people have been able to just get in an airplane and go, play in Scotland and play in Ireland. But when's the last time you played some of these small courses you haven't thought about? When's the last time you went out to Katu or Cathedral Peak and or maybe up to Catberg? These are places that I'd love to see, or even Taos. Get in your car when we can and see your own country. With homeschooling and home officing right now, maybe there is more time for people to play golf than they had before when they were bound to the office or get out and hit a ball between. So, I'm pretty positive that as we go forward with this, that I know I started and I waffled about Craig. The funny thing about him is I suggested that he do different things. He got into turf and he never looked back. And so all I'm saying to the youngsters is if they can get into our industry, then they must study all of it. Yeah. The closest person I work with, or Tinas works with, is our head of food and beverage, because literally everything we do here involves both. If we've got a group coming, we're going to try to sell them on dinners and shootouts and barbecues and everything else that goes with it. People who are in golf clubs and golf clubs alone, that's probably a little different story. But we're a destination, and we want people to stay here for 3 or 4 days. Even if it's a wedding, we want them here for 3 or 4 days. So we're going to offer as many services as we can. You want to get in this industry, it's going to be tough. But it's not based on color. It's not based on religion. It's just based on attitude and intensity, and you're willing to work. And I've said that for the 30 years I've been in this country. And I always believe that you may not have to be the best golfer to play this game. You certainly have to be a good golfer. You have to know the rules of the game, and you have to be able to understand hospitality, because that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Yeah, we get so caught up in our day-to-day world sometimes we forget about just opening our eyes. I think it's a fantastic message. Okay, right. One of the things I wanted to, I don't know if you've touched on it. I know I gave you the heads up on some of these things, but your favorite story in the golf industry, have you covered it?
Yeah. And as I thought about it, I thought about it, they just kept popping up. I mean, there was, I'll never forget the day that we were playing Fancourt on the 18th, and Ernie and I were partners against Mr. Rupert. And at that time, Nick Frangos, his manager. This was old days, early days of Fancourt. And we got up, and there was quite a bit of banter, as you can imagine, going on. And Ernie had driven it to 5-iron on 18. You got to hit it over the water to go for the green. And you all know Ernie can't see, but he doesn't need to see when he can feel. And on that particular day, as soon as he hit the shot, he went, whatever. And then he looked at me and winked because he could feel it. And that ball came down about 1.5 feet from the hole. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that moment. It was priceless. But if you'll allow me, my second best story involves Wayne Krambeck. We played 941 holes of golf in 3 days over 3 years for Red Nose. 300 the first year, 315 the second year, and 326 the third year. And that was lapping 27 holes at Fancourt. And it was quite a drive up from the 27th to the 1st. But we did it about 13 hours a day, playing straight alternate shot on gas, petrol, hyped up golf carts that would move. And that was quite rewarding in the sense that we did it. We raised money. We played a lot of golf, and we played a lot of golf well. Thanks, Wayne.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to switch it now for you, just to wrap it up. But I ask a question to the guys, and it goes against your grain. But the question is, what would you like golfers to do to make the life of the golf team easier? I don't want to hear repair pitch marks and do divots.
No, I guess if I could say it to, well, I hope there's a couple members listening and they take this with a grain of salt or seriously. Aim before you shoot.
Aim before you shoot. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about golf. It sometimes comes down to something that's happened on the golf course. They want a ruling or they want to protest something. But, one of my members who can remain nameless gave me some great advice. And he reminded me that my life was harder than his, and that he had annual meetings once a year. He had AGMs once a year in which his shareholders could vent. Most of my shareholders live right around me. And, if we don't get it right, they're going to vent. And I just want them to aim at me rather than just shoot. I want them to rather talk to us than talk about us. So when it's all said and done, we're here for the people that we work for. We work for our members, as I said before, to put them first and treat our guests as members. But sometimes people fire before they think.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. Okay, wrapping it up, what do you think the golf industry is going to expect now? Do you think we're going to open on Friday? Do you think we're going to open in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, end of the month? What's your hunch?
One of the greatest supporters of golf is Mr. Rupert. And I see he tweeted yesterday, there's more to life than golf right now with all this going on in our country. I'd love to see our members get out. But as I said earlier, we can't do anything that nobody else is doing. We've got to respect the rules of our government. It's working. I think the steps that have been taken, I think this could have been catastrophic. I don't think we're over it. I still have many members of my staff living in very close quarters, and it's around them. Fortunately for us that we don't have it in our face here, and we're going to take every step to make sure that it's not. But I think as we do come back to it, our biggest challenges are probably going to be based on travel, discretionary income. As I said, it's not a cheap game anymore. It's not cheap to travel. So we're going to have to continue as golf developments and golf courses to make it memorable. to do what we can to anticipate their needs and wants, to listen to our members, to ask our members what they think, and our guests, and find a way to get people back out. I mean, it is actually ridiculous. When I look out my window right now at the cleanest air and the most beautiful skies, and you can't touch it. Look, but you can't touch. But I guess my final thing is that when we do come back, we will come back very carefully. And we will offer programs to our members, teaching programs, short game incentives, fun stuff. I even thought the other day, maybe we put circles on the greens, and when they chip to the green, they get in the circle. We use an honor system, but we give them bucks. You know, when they achieve things on the golf course in their own game, we give them bucks, and they can use them in the club later. You know, apply them to our own facilities, and I guess we'll deliver if we can deliver. It's not cost effective right now for us to think that way, but we'll do whatever we can to provide the lifestyle services that we can.
Yeah. Well, the meeting's tomorrow at 3:00, I believe. So we'll wait and hear what they say after that. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. It's such a great to chat to you. I assume you take it as a massive compliment that so many people see you as a mentor in their careers. So congratulations on that. Thanks for your time. It's been wonderful to chat to you. Is there any, if people want to get hold of you, are you prepared to give your Twitter handle or your social media handles out?
Yeah, no, sure, of course. You can find me on Facebook. It's Jeff Claus. That's easy. Twitter, it's @ClausJeff. I don't know why. It was early on. I love Instagram for the pictures. And, you know, if you want a little bright spark in your life, folks, if you're listening to me, I found this thing. I think it's called The World Through My Window or something. It's a little Facebook thing. You can search it. It has nothing to do with me, but it's people posting pictures through the windows of their homes from around the world. And it kind of makes you step back and just go, whoa, we're pretty well blessed. We're blessed. I'm blessed to live here in St. Francis Bay. I wish everybody to be safe, and as we can get back on our feet, support your locals. Support your locals wherever you can, and let's get through this, South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. Charles is just saying congratulations on a great interview. Charles, I'd love to have you on sometime later next week. It's I've got quite a few guys lined up for this, but definitely want to get you on at some point soon.
The worst turf on our estate is around his house.
That's quite often the case.
Yeah, he ran a 21K this week around his house, so he's going to have to buy some turf from us. Well done, Charlie.
Okay. All right, Jeff. Thanks a lot. This video will go on. It will go on our YouTube, and then we'll post it onto the Instagram once we've made it look a bit better on both ends, and then I'll send it to you.
Thanks, my friend. And thanks for all you do for the industry. Thank you for producing great people in our industry, and carry on doing what you do best. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it. Chat soon.
All the best.
Okay. You can log off.
Okay. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that either, Pard.